We are live for show number 54 on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. My name is Ty K, the Flip Man. I have Renikia with us. Adrian won't be here today, so we're going to rock as a duo and not as a trio. So how's it going, Renikia?
Everything's going good. I had a great week. It's been a little muggy out here, but been a great week. How about yourself?
Oh, same here. Went to a closing today. And they said the seller and the buyer, neither one has signed their documents. So we'll see at a later date.
We got closing tomorrow.
Hopefully. I just emailed her. I forgot to do it before they close. Hopefully she's still at the office. She'll respond back. But as of right now, I have no idea. So, but anyway, so we'll get over here to YouTube since I'm going to be the actual host today, and that's asking the questions. Let me get over here right quick. So y'all know how Adrian does this really smoothly, and I don't. So you know what it is. So anyway, so let's get over here to, let me find the actual live feed so I can get to the questions. While I'm doing that, I'll let Renikia tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to thank Ty for even having me a part of this show. It's been a blast. So I really appreciate this amazing opportunity. But my name is Renikia Williams. I'm the founder and CFO of Fortune Key Financials. Our main goal is to help individuals build household wealth, begin to build generational wealth for some families using real estate investing, leveraging your credit, and just overall financial advisory principles and basic principles that we'll just never taught. So my focus is to educate. On top of that, provide the right services that we need and the tools that we need to really find our way to the top, or just find your way to becoming financially free.
Well, okay, great. So we're ready to rock and roll here. Just to do some cleanup, we got a few questions already on YouTube. People are in here. Like the chat is moving a little slow, but it'll catch up. We have Dante, we have Victor in here, we have Daniel, Sheila. What do we have over here? Facebook. We have Troy, Anthony, D, Stephen. So let me find a question here and we'll go ahead and get started. Let me go back over here to YouTube. All right. Let me see here. Well, I don't have one yet, Renikia. We don't have a question yet. Someone says that, all right, please break. Okay, this is Dante from YouTube. He says, please break down the steps on how to acquire, we get this question a lot, a tax delinquent property. I have a parcel number, how much they owe in back taxes, what? I guess it is a question what to do.
Okay. That's actually a great question. I think purchasing tax liens is a great way to buy a property at a very cheap price. It has its pros and cons. A lot of people don't see the true value in buying tax liens, but I do recommend to diversify your portfolio in tax liens. It's one of those scenarios that if you purchase a tax lien, most states, they have a redemption period. And during that time frame, the actual owner can come and redeem the property. Some states is 4 months. I heard in Indiana it's 4 months. Here in Georgia is a year and a day, where the property owner has the option to come and purchase their property by purchasing or paying for the taxes that you paid for, plus a percentage on top of that. I know here in the States, here in Georgia, I want to say the percentage is 18 to 20%, but every state is different. That's a great place to park your money and get a return of your money. And worst case scenario, a lot of times people don't come back and purchase their property. So you end up getting a free and clear home for the price of the taxes. So to answer your question, what you want to do is call down to the county, go to the county workers and see if it's in the foreclosure. And that's going to be auctioned off that month or that year. Every state, every county is different. Their auction is different. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, it's the first Tuesday of every month. You want to figure out what day that they will be auctioning off that property. With that being said, you just go down to the county, make sure you have your cashier's check ready to go to purchase that property. You have to be ready to purchase right then and there at the auction at the county steps. And then there's a process once you do purchase it, where you have to redeem and pretty much foreclose on the property. You also have to give the owner, you have to let the owner know that you have purchased their property or their tax liens, and promote that in the paper, send them a letter and let them know who you are and give them the option to come back and purchase their property from you. And then you got to go through a redemption period and a quiet title period.
Okay. All right. Next question, which is from Facebook, says people are putting banner signs over mine. Should I take theirs down?
What was the question again?
People are putting bandit signs over mine. Should I take theirs down?
That's actually a really good question. I mean, it is a competitive world. You want to stay competitive. I don't believe in taking anyone's down. I will plant mine right next to you. It's kind of like almost saying, why would there be a Burger King next to a McDonald's? You know, at the end of the day, competition is competition. And then for some reason, as we stated last week, I want to say a lot of times, you know, people don't answer their phone. So they're going to continue to call everyone. And I don't know anyone who just called one sign if they're really trying to purchase or they're really trying to sell. They're going to call every sign in that neighborhood. So be competitive. You just got to put your sign right next to it.
Agreed.
What do you think?
Now, if I see a consistent pattern of that, of someone placing their signs over mine, then, you know, okay, it's on or whatever. So, all right. From YouTube, well, it's really just a statement, and I'm gonna read a question after that. But Antonio Chandler says, Flipman, I have 2 commercial properties that I'm stuck with. And Antonio, that's not enough information. You need to give us a little bit more information on what's the deal there. All right, Brittany from YouTube, would you suggest business cards or just bandit signs?
Both. I suggest both. But if you had to choose between the two, of course you want to go with what's going to bring the money in. Most likely, the bandit signs is probably going to bring the money in a lot faster and quicker than your business cards. So if you had to choose between the two, I would choose the bandit signs first. Yeah, I would choose the bandit signs first. But you can go to Vistaprint and get for like $5 or $10, you can get like 250 business cards for like $5 on Vistaprint. So there's so many sources out there that allow you to be able to get the tools that you need to be in business at a very cost-effective way. So that's a great place to start if you are in limbo with the amount of funds that you have to start.
Okay, from Facebook, Anthony says, is there a script for calling title companies?
I guess if you're looking for a title company, it's to me, it's kind of it's a two-way interview. Personally, I want to know if you fit my mold, you fit the type of transactions I'm trying to do. Every title company or every attorney do not do double closings. So it's kind of like a two-way interview. But basically, you want to let them know that you're a seasoned investor. You're looking for an attorney to add to your team that could pretty much handle all of your closings. And you want to see if, they do this type of transactions, or let them know if you are trying to do a wholesale, you need a double closing, see if they'll be willing to do that type of closing.
And on top of that, just be aware that a lot of times when whoever answers the phone at the title company, and if you start to spiel right there, that individual may have no idea what you're talking about. So just keep that in mind, but don't let that discourage you or whatever, because some title companies, some closing attorneys, they've never done that type of transaction before. But if you're in a decent sized market, you'll be able to find someone new. Now, I'm going to normally advise you just calling around, just looking for one, unless you have a deal in place. Or well, when I say a deal in place, meaning you have a seller and a buyer ready to go. The easy thing to do in a lot of cases, won't always present itself. Most buyers, if they're seasoned buyers, they already have those relationships built, and you can just piggyback off of those relationships. And then the next time you can go back to that particular that particular title company or closing attorney, even if that buyer is not even involved in the transaction. So, just keep that in mind or whatever. All right. Okay, next question from YouTube. Xavier says, what do you do when a buyer wants to see the property, but an owner still lives there?
That's a good question. You got to control your deal. You have to control your deal. You don't want your end buyer to meet the actual owner of the property. You always want to position yourself as, if you have to say it, at least a contract owner of this property. But want to position yourself as the owner, even though you are just the contractual owner of that property. But never allow your end buyer and your seller to meet. And if they do meet, control the conversation. Control the conversation. You have to prep one of the parties or the other. You have to call the seller or call the buyer and let them know that, to not ask any questions or whatever. You got to find a way to totally control that conversation and control, not allow them to come together. Very important.
Agreed. Just to piggyback off of that, if that's the situation, and sometimes the seller, that's where they live, so they're going to let you in or whatever. So you got to control your buyer more so at that point, and let them know any price negotiations go through me. I know you want to inspect the property before you make this investment, but I am wholesaling this property. Any price negotiations go through me. You can ask the seller about any history, but you want to be right there between them. You know what I'm saying? So that's part of the issue with quote unquote virtual wholesaling. You must have someone on the ground that represents you, because it's not going to be just the ideal situation that you can just have someone put a lockbox on it and the seller and the buyer never meet each other. And that's la la land. That ain't gonna always be the situation. We would love for it to be, but that's not always the situation. So if you're gonna do virtual wholesaling, you gotta have someone on the ground that's gonna represent your interests, whether that's another wholesaler, someone a realtor, or whoever. So that's a must. You got anything else to add on that? Are we good?
No, that's perfect.
All right. Okay. I think I'll go back over here to face of the book. And Andrea, I think that's how it's pronounced. In Boston, there's been a tough market. Any suggestions? Now, I read that knowing that we needed more information. So I'm saying, Andrea, we need more information. What have you done to generate leads? That's going to be always my first question, is what are you doing to generate leads? It just really boils down to that. We know in Boston, people die. We know they get divorced. We know they lose their jobs or income. We know they relocate. We know they're tired landlords there. And so you get the point. These issues, it exists in any market, which creates motivated sellers. So what are you doing to make sure they know you exist as an investor that buys houses? So that's my question. What are you doing to generate leads?
Absolutely.
So
I
I
think
guess,
that was great. And just to add to that, you know, when you enter in the market, and you know, the key is to educate yourself on your market. You know, figure out what are the areas and what are the zip codes and what are the streets that that you see more new construction or you see more building in. So you want to, you know, never underestimate that. If you see building in a certain zip code, go where the building is, go where the money is. You know, sometimes you can kind of create an untapped area. You know, sometimes it depends. There's a lot of untapped areas. You know, it's just a matter of you being able to go and identify those areas. But locate areas that are hot, locate zip codes that are untapped that people wouldn't mind living in those areas. You know. So.
all right. Kimbala, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, from YouTube says, what do you tell a seller when they ask you how long have you been in business? I guess they mean if you're just starting out and you haven't been in business that long. So, what would you say? That's a good question.
I would say that I'm a seasoned investor, and a lot of my business partners, collectively, we have about 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I
Unless
guess.
you have a business partner that actually brings history to the table. But you can always blend it in with your partners. Blend your experience in with your partners.
And when you mean partners, you mean like potential cash buyers or quote unquote end buyers or whatever that you'll be networking with to put deals together. So yeah, you can always go back on that. And if you're not comfortable with saying that, then meet some people, and then now they are associates of yours. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't know any, you go out and meet some. So
what do you think, Ty?
uh, yeah, that works. All right. So Victor from YouTube also. All right. Do you feel that lease options is the true bread and butter as far as consistency in wholesaling real estate? I'm gonna start on that one if you don't mind.
Okay.
The lease option game is more, and I was talking to my man Brian locally here, the Real Group, president of the Real Group here, and he made a great point. I never thought about it like this. The lease option game, if you're going to do lease options, you probably need to be doing lease options full time, because that side of the business is so predicated on good tenant buyers and constantly screening them to be, to have the end game of them, going through a process like what Runikia does. I'm sure she does a lot of this, and getting their credit straight, because the end game, yeah, you want to get them in their property, get that down payment, but they need to be on a real plan to be able to cash that property out at some point. That's normally how a lease option works. So it's so tenant buyer driven, because you can find, as a matter of fact, in my opinion, you can find lease options opportunities faster than you can just find a straight out wholesale cash deal opportunity, because so many people are so many properties are leveraged with mortgages that won't make sense for just a cash deal as far as wholesaling, but be perfect for lease options, because a lot of times the properties are more than livable. They may be in some really nice areas or whatever. It's just, the house is a $300,000 house, but they owe 220. That's still not a deal in most cases. You know what I'm saying? So, but it may be a perfect lease option opportunity, because it does have some decent equity there to be capitalized on under a perfect lease option as far as that process goes. What do you think?
No, I think no, you're totally right. It's definitely tenant based driven. I think lease option is a great way to diversify your real estate portfolio, because it's great to know different ways to handle a property, and no matter what you get, you have so many different options and ways to purchase and provide an exit strategy for it. So just knowing that technique, you know that you can use it if you need it. So I think lease options are great. It kind of allows you to own and not own, which is a great tactic to building a real estate portfolio, and really just creating a bank. But it is tenant driven. Most importantly, if you're doing a lease option, always put in there that your a renewal clause allow you to renew it another three terms. And if you do a 2-year term or a 3-year term, and you put a 2-time renewal in there, that allow you to renew it for 6 years. And you should be able to find a tenant in that time. So different little gems and tactics so you can be successful at that option. It's very, very important.
Okay. All right. Over at Facebook, this is Troy. He says, Renika or Ty, how do you work with a real estate agent that send me emails of distressed homes? I just found out that wholesalers are getting in trouble for advertising homes that they don't own here in Virginia. You can only advertise your contract if you don't own it. You want to start on that one? The first part of the question was, how do you work with a real estate agent that send me emails of distressed homes? I'm assuming they mean listed properties.
I mean, I always say it's harder to wholesale properties that's on the market because it's public records. And if your end buyer is a savvy end buyer, and they just Google, which I assume everyone should do if they purchase a property, if you just Google the address, you're going to see different, websites come up, and most likely that listing will be the site. So why would I pay you $100,000 for a property I see on MLS for $75,000? So you got to understand that tactic behind doing properties that is on or trying to wholesale properties that are on MLS. Now, if you're sending you a list that is not on MLS, you could be successful in wholesaling that, but you don't really want to overly and publicly market any property that you do not have under contract, unless you have a seller agreement, a marketing agreement. There is an agreement that's called like a marketing agreement where the seller will allow you to market that property. But yeah, you can definitely get in trouble for marketing a property that you don't own or you don't have any contract or interest
in. Okay, I think we're getting out there. We have a couple of comments that I think your volume is low. Can you turn it up a little? You think? Okay. All right, we'll see how it goes. All right, let me find another one here. All right, Daniel on YouTube. What are good ways to approach and get info for new cash buyers at auction? What have you found to be the best strategy in achieving that task? So I guess he's asking, if you go to an auction, what's your strategy as far as approaching, investors there? Because obviously, if they're standing there on the courthouse steps or however it's done in your market, there are probably some players, because you have to have the money there to purchase.
Right. I would say, I would definitely say it will be just like, it would be just like if you go into any networking event, how do you approach a person at a networking event? So you always want to be presentable. You always want to usually even have a flyer or a business card in place, let them know that you are a seasoned investor and you have properties for sale. And you will definitely love to network with them or send them your property list or add them to your buyers list. So just network as if you were just networking at a networking event.
Okay. All right. Let's say, yeah. Hopefully it'll clear up. Okay, back to YouTube. All right. Brittany says, this is a good question, which is sort of hard for me to answer this. I just have a feel for it. But it says, how do we determine how much we should get if you're a wholesaler? Basically, how do you determine how much you want to make on a deal? I don't have a formula that I can give someone. If you gave me the numbers, repairs, price, ARV, I'll just tell you what what I would ask for. I really can't tell someone, what it is. You may have a more scientific or formula based way of doing it, but I don't. It's just something I just struggle with being able to tell someone. It's just a
right. I mean, and you're totally right. There's no magical formula for it, or I wouldn't at least put myself in a box, because you can really create your own spread. But most importantly, it has to always be correlated directly to the price and the ARV and the scope of work. So if you have those three numbers, you can determine the amount of spread. If you have the price, if you have an estimated scope of work, 20,000, 30,000, estimated scope of work, and if you know the comps or the after repair value, you should be able to estimate your spread just off those three numbers alone. Because no investor really want a property that they will purchase more than over 70% of value. So that that's one way to determine your spread, is making sure the purchase price and the after repair value, the purchase price and the scope of work is no more than 70% of the ARV. And I'll let you know your spread if you just do that formula.
Okay. All right. What we got here? All right. We'll go here to Facebook again. And Armando, I think that's how it's pronounced. Does anyone work with code violations or lien for demolition list? That's the way it reads. If so, can you explain your process for determining a deal worth pursuing?
What was the question?
Basically, he's asking, have you ever targeted or used condemn list or demo list, depending on your market, what it may be called, and targeted owners? Obviously, there's going to be liens attached from the city for those type of properties, so it has to make sense based on the liens, the condition, and obviously ARV, all that stuff. So question is, have you ever targeted a condemned property list or a demolition list?
Personally, no. Personally, no, I haven't. However, there are so many ways. However, there are so many ways for you to find buyers. And if you find a unique way like what you just explained, go for it. See that it works. I think it's so many ways to the end goal. There's so many lead generation ways. And if you come across something of that nature, I think it's a great way to generate leads, and let me know how it works out.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I've come across properties that were on the list, but it only came from my marketing. It wasn't that I targeted the list itself, and the city may have a lien against it. But again, those properties should have, depending on how large the list is. Now, understand that normally when they're those type of properties, they need a lot of repairs. So you got to get it cheap. Hopefully that the lien that the city has against it and the repairs that are needed doesn't make it a deal breaker. But at the end of the day, in most of those cases, the seller, there's a high probability that the seller will be motivated to sell, and very cheap. I would assume close to what the lien amount is. They may want to walk away, but some people are still in la land, even though the city is about to tear it down. It's just going to be a vacant lot, and they're going to send them a bill, which will be attached to any other real estate that they own or whatever. That'll be a lien that'll be attached to any other real estate that they own, definitely in that state. So But yeah, it's just another way again to create lead. If you figure it out and you're able to generate some deals from it, then boom, there you go. So there should be some motivated sellers in there. But like with anything, if you're going to do it, you need to be consistent with it if you're going to do it. All right, so we'll go over here to YouTube again. All right, so someone said, let me see here. I'm gonna read this one out because I think they text me a picture of this check. Andrea says, I have a question, Flip Man. When working with another wholesaler and they need to find a buyer, is it best to put them on the contract? I had a deal last month and only made $700. I did the deal on faith. So yeah, so that 700, hey, that's marketing money. You know what I'm saying? We're not laughing at you. We're just talking about you did the deal on faith. That's the part that's made us stickers. Yeah, if you got paid anything, you were fortunate. If you did it on faith, you know. But that 700, boom, that's if you just did it all bandit signs, that's over. You're probably approaching 700 bandit signs. That'll last you the rest of the year or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that 700 may spring your take your business, send it to Venus. So definitely, but to answer your question, no, you need to be papered up whenever you start producing buyers for people and all this stuff. And you need to have a good understanding on what the possibilities of what you're going to make. I don't know if the $700 was given to you out of just, hey, I just need to give them something, or that was, you know, what you thought you were going to make anyway. So, but doing it on faith, now we would like to think it would work that way, but you need to be papered up in some form of fashion.
And I just add to that, in the words of my late grandfather, it all adds up. Just make sure you're adding it up. Just make sure, I don't care if it's $500, $50, just put it in the pot. It will all add up. But most importantly, documentation beats conversation.
Oh, I like that.
Documentation beats conversation. So, you know, I like to think there's a lot of good people in this world, but unfortunately, when it comes to money, you know, people get funny. You know, they forget that they got to pay you. So you just want to make sure that whatever you all discuss, is make sure you put that on a document stating the amount of money that the seller has agreed, the buyer has agreed to pay you at closing pertaining to that particular address. So make sure you always put your documentation in place, always.
All right. Darian from Facebook says, how many houses have you flipped with that one-page seller's contract? That's the only contract I've ever used, and I've been doing it 15 years. So you can do the math. I'm still doing it. So hundreds of deals. So other contracts have been used, but as far as the seller side, that's the only contract that's ever used on my residential properties. So
I know a man that did, one of my great mentors, that did his first transaction on a napkin. So don't get caught up in, you know, the size of the contract, as long as it has the amount of the right information in it that can be given to the attorney to purchase or sell the property. So.
Yeah, one of my friends, a guy locally here, you know, he and I sort of met. He and his wife and I met at a property one time that I was showing him. We didn't do the deal, and it circled back in another business. We got to know each other, but he started telling me how he started doing real estate. He used to actually, basically like what you said, do the stuff right on the hood of his car, write it up.
Right there, exactly. A long time ago, people didn't have contracts and stuff. They use what they had.
You what they have, and no, this is recent. And like when I say recent, we're in the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? And he would take it to an attorney. The attorney would do the paperwork, bring the paperwork back to the individual, and he would close the deal right there, like on the street or whatever. But as long as his paperwork was correct, done performed by the attorney, it's the same thing, you know, as a closing. because then you just go file it at the courthouse, but it's the same thing in reality. I wouldn't suggest you do it that way because most people, but he's just a hustler like that. He learned to do it the right way, but initially all it was a hustle for him. I can do this and do that, so and all I need to do is do this with an attorney. So that's the way he looked at it, but he got it, started going to a closing or whatever. But my point is that don't get so tied up in the contract part of it. People don't do this business, Renika, because they're terrified of the contract. If the paperwork is the only thing holding you back and you got a buyer and seller in place, you don't have a problem. That's one of them good problems. I don't like to use the word easy, but if there's anything easy about this business is the paperwork. On wholesaling now, you can get more complicated. Don't get me wrong. But as far as just a wholesale transaction, you buying the property as is. You know what I'm saying? That eliminates most of the clauses right there. So another one from Facebook. I don't know what name this is. He has it in some foreign language, but anyway. But the question is in English that I can read anyway. Does those "We Buy Houses" signs really work for finding cash buyers?
We Buy Houses sign works to find anyone. At the end of the day, it's the same process. I mean, if you want to change the words up for we sell houses, I'm sure a investor or investor will call you that maybe a cash buyer will call you. So let's change the words up to we sell houses. And only someone that's gonna call a we sell houses sign is someone who's looking to purchase, most likely.
Yeah, most likely what you'll get, people, do y'all rent houses? You're gonna get some of that, you know what I'm saying? And you're gonna get people, well, how much you have to put down? You're gonna get some of that too. But to answer this question, you can find cash buyers that way also. Ideally, you need to indicate some type of discount, whether if you put a price there on it or some wording like discounted houses for sale, something like that to really target cash buyers a little bit more than just we sell houses. But the other thing is that bandit signs are basically mini billboards. You're just taking advantage of thousands of eyeballs. People that are in their everyday lives or traveling, whatever they do to wherever they're going. And you're just putting your message in there. Credit repair, I cut grass, I paint houses, I clean houses, divorce attorney, you'll see all types of bandit signs. We do plumbing work, just on and on, because again, you're able to take advantage of thousands of eyeballs for pennies on the dollar. Especially in a high dollar product on what we're talking about with houses. I had a student say he don't want to come on because he didn't want his family in his business, and I get that. But a bandit sign in Fresno, California, he said it, I think he sent me the picture of that check last Friday. I was trying to get him to do an interview. $67,000 on a $1.50 bandit sign.
Wow.
I don't know a business you can do that with.
Absolutely.
67 big ones.
I deserve a clap.
now that's gated.
Congratulations.
Hey, he was just thanking me, say, man, you changed my family life, so.
It's business real.
Yeah,
it's business California. One contract at a time could change your life. One contract at a time.
Oh, yeah. So to answer this question, you can use bandit sign for anything, man. You probably use bandit sign to find your wife if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Single, looking, in your phone number. Call or text. Single and call or text.
Right.
Oh boy. Darren asked, how much does my one-page contract cost? Just to get that question answered, it doesn't cost anything. You can get it free at my site, flipman.net. That's flipman.net. Okay, and Antoine on Facebook, Renika, this will be for you. Can you get funding for a flip under a new LLC?
He asking, can he get funded under a new LLC?
Under a new LLC.
Absolutely, you can't get funded in a new LLC. Hard money is based on your experience. So regardless if you do change your LLC, the LLC, the hard money will approve you based on the experience of either you or your LLC. So most likely, if it's a brand new LLC and you have no experience, you'll most likely have to bring to the table 20% of down payment for that loan. And that 20% of the all-in costs. Some lenders give you 100% rehab, but just for estimation purposes, it's better to overestimate and have to provide less. I will just say 20% loan to cost. So it'll be 20% of your scope of work plus the purchase price is what you'll most likely bring to the table.
All right. A question from Standard Investing from YouTube. He says, what's a good way to get accurate? Man, my Siri didn't went off. Why did it do that? What's a good way to get accurate comps in a small town like Tulsa? I guess he means Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa is probably the size of Birmingham, but go ahead though, Renika. Let me look that up right now.
I would say the most accurate comps, I will start with MLS listings. So you may want to get with a real estate agent within your town, your city, your community, and see if they'd be willing to pull up comps for your property or your area.
Well,
Zillow is a rough estimate. I won't rely 100% on Zillow. But what I will say about Zillow is that most MLS listings are synced with Zillow. So Zillow is a rough estimate that give you a zestimate of your property. You can start there. What you can also do is when you go on Zillow, when you pull up your property, there's a map that shows the value of the properties around it. You can kind of Skype that map and see what the property value are that's surrounded by your property. And there's also a filter page on Zillow where you can filter all the sold properties in the area. You can filter all the properties that's on the market in the area. So that's a good start. But the most accurate is probably going to be with the pulling MLS listings with the realtor.
Okay. Someone asked, are you in Dallas? She's in Atlanta. And to piggyback off of that, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Metro Tulsa is 961,000, which that's big. That's more than enough. That's more than enough of a population for you to make a really good living. Birmingham is only like 1.1, 1.2 metro. So that's not much smaller than Birmingham. So I know what I can do here. I think I eat good. I don't look like it. So yeah, you're good. That's a decent sized market to make it happen, man. We had another question here on Facebook. Where is it? Nehemiah asked me about the mail to flip using the picture with the postcard. I've done 2 campaigns. I've done, the first campaign was only like a couple hundred, and that was just targeting apartment buildings. I didn't do a deal from there, but I generated quite a few calls. I really wasn't compared to the number of calls that I received really on both campaigns. So the next time I do it, I got to do something differently. But I did do a deal on the second campaign where I sent out 3,500 mailers. Now it cost me $2,200, but I made $9,500 off of it. So what is that? $7,300 profit, just on one deal, and I'm still getting calls from it. So it's different. You're gonna get a lot of calls, now obviously the more you send, the more calls you get, which I recommend. So it's a unique way to send a piece of direct mail. The owner's picture of their property is on there. It's just going to get their attention. It just is. Right. So hey, mailtoflip.com, just check it out. All right, question here, Renikia. When is a good time or day to send direct mail? This is from Facebook. What's this person's name? Is it Jetson? Yeah, Jetson from Facebook.
When is it time to send direct mail or
Yeah,
direct message?
when is a good time or day to send direct mail? Like, I guess if you're going to send out a campaign, is it better for a campaign to be mailed out on a Friday so they'll start to bleed in on maybe Monday or Tuesday? Or is it better to send it on Monday so they'll bleed into the weekend? So I guess that's what he's asking.
Oh, man, what do you think? That's actually a great strategic question.
Yeah.
You know, just thinking about the psychology around, you know, the day-to-day of people's lives. You
Yeah.
know, when do you really sit down and look at your mail? Do you do that daily, or do you do that once? You know, that answers a great question. What do you think?
I've been told a couple of different things, so some of it's just going to be testing on your own. What I've been told, I'm trying to remember, because when I get ready to do something, I have to do it because I've got to go ahead and spend the money. You know what I'm saying? So, but logically, what I've been told is if you're going to send them out, you send them out like on Thursday. They need to go out on Thursdays or Tuesdays. Thursdays, some people will start to get them on Saturday and Monday. And if you send them out on Tuesday, that'll bleed into the weekend. Like I say, some people just sit down and read their mail, have more time to pay attention to it leading into the weekend. So, that was a couple. That's two different schools of thoughts on it, or whatever. So,
I would say always track your campaign. You know, you want to figure out what works and what don't. Yeah. So, you know, send a batch out on Thursday, send a batch out on Tuesday, and figure out which batch is giving you the most calls. So.
All right. This is another one from Facebook, from Kagan. I need funding on a flip. I have a house under contract now. This is my first flip. My score is 600. And I have an approval now, but not trying to put down 20%. I have 20 to 35,000 down. I guess they say can put down, but so far need 40,000. Is there anyone out there that can do what I'm looking for? I guess that's more or less.
If it's your first flip, most likely it's going to be 20%.
Yeah, that's what he said, but he only has 30,000. But I think whatever deal he's doing, he needs 40,000.
Right. Right. So the key is that when you're doing your first flip, you have absolutely no experience on top of having a credit score that's less than 680, 640. It's going to be 20%. That lender is taking a greater risk dealing with someone who has absolutely no experience, and also dealing with someone who is not showing A1 credit either. So you have to understand that from a lender standpoint. So most likely your first flip of two would be at the 20% mark.
Yeah, if you got 25 to 30K, I would recommend wholesale some properties. Take about 2,500 to 5,000 of that, put a 6-month plan in for marketing and wholesale some property, build that capital up some more, get your credit up some more. I don't know what your situation is, but it sounds like Renikia, if he has that type of capital, you know, he should be able to pay off some things or whatever, however that will, where I know that's your expertise. But if you got that type of war chest, most people don't have that type of war chest to start out wholesaling. You could easily leverage just 5,000 of that over the next 6 months to a year into over 100K easily. I don't know what market you're in, but most people don't have that type of war chest to start generating leads, because that's all this business boils down to, is generating leads. So you may make 25,000 on just one deal. You know what I'm saying? And the only thing you spent is just a few $100s on a direct mail campaign or banner signs or some cold calling, or really with that much money, you could have a combination of multiple things going on as far as generating leads with that type of money to invest initially. And you're holding on to 25,000 of it, only using about 5,000 of it. And you would never have to touch that money again. You know, then you can spring into flipping if you want to, or holding or whatever. Like I say, you should be able to get your credit up in that time frame. Well, what do you think, baby girl?
No, I mean, you're totally right. You know, I mean, you don't want to start flipping on a very tight foundation or your tight resources. So basically, the down payment is one thing you have to bring to the closing table. You have to also bring your closing costs, your points. 6 months of monthly reserves have to be calculated into that. Usually, the first draw, your rehab has to be calculated in that. So you want to make sure that you have enough cushion to go out there and flip. You know, if they saying that you need 30,000 or 40,000, you really want to show 80,000. So you don't put yourself in a tight bind. So I would definitely agree with that. You may want to start wholesaling a little bit more so you can get your resources or get more resources in your pocket that can sustain your flip. So yeah, I agree with you.
All right. This is another one from Facebook. All right. They're asking about this. His name is Jordan. He says, do you calculate each home at a 70% formula? And is this formula for the seller or buyer?
The formula is for everybody. You know, no one is going to purchase a property that is over 70% of the after repair value. It doesn't make sense at that point. You know, the profit margins are a lot smaller at that point. So I'm sorry, what was the question?
I guess he's basically saying, I think what he means is that if he's trying to determine if something is a deal or not, okay, and so basically that would be for the seller because that's where the deal starts with the property owner or whatever. And so you're using that 70% formula to see if it would be a deal for a potential buyer. I look at the formula, I don't have to really use it, but I look at that for people starting out, you need something to go by if you're not familiar with the business and what makes a deal and what not a deal. But I look at it as more of it prevents me from wasting time on stuff that has no chance of being a deal.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. Because even when I come up with a number, at the end, I'm still going to probably offer lower than that if I'm forced into an offer. Right. I'll try to get them
Absolutely.
To how much they want, but sometimes they won't, so you're forced into an offer.
Right. And I mean, as you do more wholesale deals and fix and flip, that formula just becomes a part of it. It's not something like Ty said, you know, you don't necessarily do the formula every time. It gives you that threshold. It gives you, you know, that limitation of what's a deal and not a deal when you first get on the scene or you first begin to do your wholesaler, do your first fix and flip. You want to have that understanding of what's a deal and what's not a deal. So just speaking of just terms of numbers, let's say, for instance, if the property is worth $100,000, for simple terms, the property is worth $100,000, and the person wants $80,000 for this property. At that point, that $80,000 is over 70% of the value, which is $70,000, is not a good deal. But if that same property that the seller was selling at $35,000, it makes it a good deal because what they're asking for is below 70% of the after repair value. So just use it as a threshold. You can use it as a threshold for your assignment fees. You can use it as a threshold to just know if you are purchasing or contracting a great deal. It's just a great threshold.
Okay. Someone asked views from Kia. Says, do all children need to be at the closing table? That's a vague question, but I think I know what they're asking. If I guess they mean if it's heir property or something like that, that's the only thing they could mean. If it's I know how it is in Alabama, I'm assuming it's the same way in most states, but if you're fortunate if both parents are deceased or both owners, if it is two parents, maybe just one parent, but if they're deceased and all of the kids are alive, whether that's 1 or 40, all the kids agree on the sale at a price that works, and they all show up at closing and sign it. It don't always work that way, though. You could have 2 kids and they don't agree on, number one, let's sell it. Number 2, selling at a price that works for both of them. So hopefully everyone's on the same page. Ideally, someone would have a will and they have an executor of the estate and just basically one decision maker, and the other kids get in line, whatever that the executor says. They don't always work that way. As you know, and I'm not being racist, but as Black folks, we a lot of times don't handle our business because we'll look at it. Number one, if we put a will together, we're putting ourselves in the ground, right?
Right.
The other thing is that if I put a will together and then I actually designate one child over another, everybody's still alive, but that causes confusion, which is ignorant. It's just handling business. Most parents know who the responsible child is. Well, let me back up. Sometimes that's not always the case. Let me back up, because some parents may favor other kids, and they may not need to be favoring that child. So that's going to be dependent on the dynamic of that family nucleus and how they roll. But ideally, regardless of that, a will needs to be done, and an executor needs to be designated. So whenever someone does pass, that you don't have those issues where 4 or 5 people have to make a decision. Just think about this though, Renika. You know, some of these families, or these older individuals, they had 7, 8 kids. 3 of the kids already dead. Right. They got 4 kids each. 2 of them dead. You know what I'm saying? Right. Just keep going on and on and on. Right. There's no way you're gonna get everybody just close to the table that has a say so in it.
Right. Right. I mean, I've seen probate cases last 2-3 years. I mean, yes. I mean, that's your question. Yes, you do have to have the signature of every party that is as of ownership. So if they don't have that designated agent, then you have to get all the sisters and brothers on the same page in order to sell that property. I mean, it's real. I mean, yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
And that's the whole. That's like probate, you know. Yeah, that's like massaging them through that time frame as well.
All right. William Gibbons from YouTube says, "What do you look for in a flip and a wholesale property?"
Do you look for in a flip and a wholesale home?
Yeah, I guess it means if you're looking for a wholesale deal, what do you look for? But if you were going to buy, fix, and flip, what are you looking for? Really, they're the same thing.
I'm looking for the same thing. You're looking for the same thing. You know, you're looking for something that has equity in it, who's below 70% of ARV, because you have to understand, most likely, a real investor would not purchase a wholesale deal that does not make sense.
Correct.
So it's really the same concept if you wholesaling it or if you are doing a fix and flip, unless you're wholesaling a buy and hold, which is a different exit strategy and a different concept. But you're looking for, I would say this, it depends on your exit strategy. Your concept or how you approach that property, approach that contract would depend on your exit strategy. So if the property that I'm wholesaling is a buy and hold, then my numbers are going to be different. I'm not looking for a 70% loan ARV. I'm just looking for cash. I'm looking for cash flow, and I'm making sure I'm not overpaying for a property, and I'm making sure I get cash flow. But if I'm doing a fix and flip, I'm looking for that 70% of value. If I'm doing a wholesale, I'm still looking for that 70% of value, or I'm looking for a cash flow tactic because I'm going to wholesale it as a buy and hold. So it all depends on if it's a buy and hold. It depends on your exit strategy.
Okay. This is a good question from Victor from YouTube. He says, "How do you feel about cold calling? I know bandit signs is the OG of wholesaling, but me personally believe that cold calling is the most effective way in me and my partner's experience. I'm coming around to that. I haven't, I'm trying to put, because I don't like doing cold call. Let's establish that first of all. For individuals, let me put it like this. For individuals like myself, I would have never been successful in doing any of this if I had to depend on just straight cold calling to find deals. Now, I will cold call like if I find a vacant property or something, and I'll reach out that way. But just calling a list, I'm gonna go home after the first no or two. Somebody hang up and say, "How do you get my number?" and all that stuff. I'm ready to go get in my bed and fetal position. So Tyrone has enough sense to get people involved, and I'm willing to share deals with them that are okay with pounding out calls back to back to back. And I'm trying to get me a system down, so if I can perfect it here, then I can duplicate in other markets or whatever. But cold calling, if you get the right list, and normally you can take the same list of absentee owners, you can get phone numbers for those and just start pounding out calls, because now is probably about the same cost as bandit signs, depending on how large the list is and what it costs you to get those phone numbers. But you can get them. You could literally buy a list today and start calling people today, right? And so, you know, even with bandit signs, you still got to order them. You got to put them out. You know what I'm saying? But with cold calling, you can start pounding out calls, you know, the same day or whatever. Right. So I'm with you, Victor. You know, I'm just trying to put my system together where I can duplicate it.
Right. And I'm with you as well. I think cold calling is a great strategy to generate leads. I think everyone, you know, I think it comes a time in this business, and as you grow your business, that you have to do what you got to do. You know, so if you know you can't afford a lot of bandit signs and you can afford a list, then you just got to get on that phone and cold call. Eventually, as you go through this business and you figure out what works for you and what don't, or what you like or what's best, then you figure out what's best for you. But I think cold calling is a great strategy. And it is a good strategy, a very cost-effective strategy. But it's all about what works for you.
Okay, well, we've ran an hour here. Y'all worn me out. I'm used to sitting back and just asking questions, but y'all making me read. So Eureka and I, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to let her tell you how to reach her, you know, what she offers. A couple of people ask about, you know, the credit repair, so you may want to get into that or whatever. So let them have it, baby girl.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed today. As I said earlier, I am Eureka Williams, the CEO and CFO of Fortune Key Financials. Our focus is to help you get to a place of financial freedom and help you understand how to use what you have to go out there and build something greater than what you can even imagine by leveraging your credit and by using other people's money. My motto will always be credit is the gateway to wealth. So if you're not using your credit, then it's almost like snailing your way to financial freedom. We had a point in our lives where a lot of us within our families and our household, we're behind. We can't afford to snail our way. So using your credit is a very great tactic. I have a program called Gap Funding to help you leverage your credit. If you have at least a 680 or higher, you can leverage your credit to receive up to $150,000 of unsecured credit. And then we also show you and strategize with you on how to use this and how to turn this into a six-figure profit within 18 months. It comes at 0% interest for the first 18 months. So this is an opportunity that you can take your resources and take your credit and really begin to jumpstart your real estate portfolio, or use it for part of your wholesale business. So if you want to get a part of that, or you want to start that program, you can go to fundmynextdeal.com. fundmynextdeal.com. That'll give you access to my site, and you can input your information there. From there, you're going to get an email with instructions. Also, I'm on all social media outlets: Facebook, my first and last name, and LinkedIn, my first and last name, and Instagram, REUNEK.
Boom. All righty, people. We really appreciate you all showing up this week. I tried my best. Renika did her thing as always. And so again, we'll be back here next week. I hope you all have a successful weekend and get into next week, you know, find some deals, make some money. Make sure you check out, you can check out the replay of this particular Flippinar and others and 200 plus videos I have on YouTube. You can access the podcast through flipmanpodcast.com. We're on iHeartRadio. I need to upload this week's and last week Flippinar to there over the next day or so. But again, we appreciate you all showing up, and we will see you guys on the flip side.